With the anniversary of Titanfall 2 coming up relatively soon, and the newest resurgence of Titanfall 2's player base going strong, I'd like to speak about gameplay's ideas and changes I'd like to see in the third game if it ever starts being made. Regardless of this video, I don't believe Titanfall 3 will be announced anytime soon, if at all, and this is just something I wanted to think about because of my love for Titanfall 2 and the proximity of the anniversary of the game coming up soon. Well, it's time for me to take my schizophrenia medication. Give it a minute to set in, and... Wait, it's still there, what the heck?
The One Piece! The One Piece is real!
One second, gotta calm down my anticipation a little and get the nerdgasm under control. Alright, well, let's get into the video. So let's start with the movement. The movement is fine, more than fine even, but there's a couple minor changes I would want. First of all weapons to have Gunrunner active, except for heavy weapons such as LMGs and grenade launchers. Arguably the reason that Gunrunner isn't a thing on all weapons as it currently stands and is instead a selectable perk is likely because Respawn is attempting to push players into using wall running and sliding in order to get around while being ready for combat. So it makes sense not to have it for most things. Perhaps only having it for pistol type weapons would be a better option. Secondly, the vaulting animation shouldn't be so punishing. Instead of putting one's weapon away, it could be similar to Modern Warfare, in which your character pulls out their sidearm, or can use their primary while vaulting. They're still locked in place, but far from defenseless. As it stands currently, going through this animation is a death sentence, and it would be a death sentence before and after this change. But at least you'd have something to do, instead of going like, oh man, I went through this vaulting animation by mistake and then got shot in the head and there's nothing I could really do there. Versus, I went through this vaulting animation, I made a mistake in my movement, but I can still have something to do if I have good aim. But otherwise, I wouldn't change a thing about the movement. Just simple quality of life stuff. The weapon balancing in Titanfall 2 is actually really good, with some notable outliers. I'm looking at you, Alternator, and Spitfire. Most of the weapons can be used in their own right and have their own strengths and weaknesses, sometimes shared with others of its own archetype. For example, assault rifles have excellent range, however, hipfire isn't the best. SMGs are the opposite, with better hipfire and time to kill, but suffer in the range department, except for the Alternator. Grenadier weapons are very good against people on the ground and can damage Titans, however require precise tracking against targets in the air due to travel time. Meanwhile, LMGs have terrible hipfire move speed when aiming down sights, but have amazing range and magazine size. Finally, shotguns have poor range, but are very effective when up close and personal. Respawn has mostly covered all the bases for weapon designs, and there's little overlap with other weapons, and because of this, there is little weapon bloat. So adding in weapons is difficult without stepping on the toes of another weapon. This is what most games choose to have as weapon balancing, so it isn't very innovative. However, there are certain things only Titanfall does. For example, did you know that slow-moving projectiles are influenced by the Gravity Star's gravitational effect, such as the EPG in Mastiff? Or using the softball on a Gravity Star will delay the explosions until after the Gravity Star expires, dropping the entire payload at once. I think Respawn should expand upon this idea of interactability for one's other weapons and grenades. For example, explosive weapons exploding in proximity with a Firestar, or being able to blow up a grenade with gunfire while it's in flight, or having a Gravity Star being able to stick to Titans, allowing for easier explosive tracking, or grouping up explosives for one massive damaging explosion after the Gravity Star expires. Also, if the Spitfire is going to be similar to its iteration in Titanfall 1 and 2, then make it have travel time instead of being a hit scan, akin to the Wingman Elite. This should allow it to maintain its huge range advantage, but allow for those who have good movement and positioning to avoid the gunfire, while also allowing players to be able to see where they're getting shot from easier. While if the Alternator requires a nerf, make it require 1 headshot and 2 body shots instead of 3 body shots as it stands. This would reward good aim and weapon control while having access to higher range than other SMGs. A couple of weapons that would be neat to have in Titanfall 3 would be a double-barrel shotgun. However, it should not one-shot outside of a near point-blank headshot, as Respawn did likely have issues with this design and testing as evidenced by the existence of the Mastiff taking the role of the one-shot shotgun, and it is a non-hit scan weapon. so perhaps this shotgun should always be a 2-hit kill within its effective range, and be a sidearm instead of a primary, allowing for easier cleanups in something like the Wingman. Or how about a set of magnetic throwing knives which can be recalled on command, cutting up enemies on the way over and back, avoiding good aim similar to the Wingman Elite, but having an arc, less travel speed, and also giving those who are good at positioning and planning a chance at following up for extra damage on a weakened target. Before I go in depth for the Titans, something I would very much like from Titanfall 1 would be the ability to choose whether or not we go into first person or third person during an embark. Being immersed in the Titan would be cool as hell, but also having the choice to see our mercenaries' cosmetics would also be very nice. This way, we can get the best of both worlds. The design philosophy for Titanfall 2 limited Titan customization for the sake of readability, and understandably so. Whenever you see a Ronin or an Ion, you know exactly what they're capable of. While I think that each Titan should still be limited to their each individual chassis and class, they should also be able to customize the primary weapon. For example, Ronin, instead of having a 4-shot shotgun, could instead have a short-range arc gun which could be better used for harassment and depletion of defensive abilities, but have limited burst damage and be less effective against infantry. Northstar could have a quick-charge DMR, with less damage instead of the railgun type weapon we have currently, for better sustained damage at the cost of being forced to be exposed for longer durations, instead of allowing for a hit-and-run playstyle. Meanwhile, Scorch could have a lower damage rotary grenade launcher, which would be more effective against infantry, allows for the detonation of traps easier, but has reduced DPS against Titans in practice. The balance philosophy I have for these differing archetypes is that each Titan still has an easily identifiable threat range, as well as what they're capable of and what they're trying to do. Scorch is still trying to stack as many unique fire sources on their target for maximum DPS. Ronin still plays hit and run at close range, and Northstar still attempts to remain in the back while dealing good damage. The customization of weapons would simply allow one's Titan to be an extension of how one wishes to play, and Titans can still easily be tuned within their intended, limited role. Utilizing the same design philosophy that I've been using throughout the Titan section, I believe abilities should be customizable to the same degree. The abilities are still able to be used in their own little niche, but able to customize to a degree within that said niche. For example, Cloak could have 2 variations. One is a longer lasting cloak which is broken upon weapon fire, just like the one we have now, juxtaposed with a different, much shorter lasting cloak which one can fire weapons and still maintain the effect, with cloak breaking every time you shoot. Similarly, phase could be used as it is now, or place an anchor which the pilot must remain close to in order to recall to it in emergencies, with a long animation. Or instead of that, have a much shorter phase but have multiple charges. Grapple could be as it is now, which allows you to swing around, or it could be used to reel in much faster in one big burst of movement in a straight line, but limiting the freedom one has. So the rodeo mechanics are easily exploitable and very cumbersome, as Titans can easily kill a pilot after completing a rodeo simply by punching them after they jump off. There's a lot of risk, but the reward is a battery, which is a very powerful asset. But currently as it stands, you can only really jump backwards relative to where the Titan is looking, either before or after pulling a battery. A change I would make to this mechanic is that you would have the ability to choose what direction you jump off at, allowing for better freedom of movement. A rodeo is already a huge risk. You're exposed for several seconds before and after, which is a death sentence most of the time. Secondly, I would like a slight rework to how the rodeo mechanic works. Instead of being forced to pull a battery every single time, how about instead the pilot gets to choose whether or not to pull the battery, or attach one of their chosen grenades to a Titan instead, with each grenade doing something different. Arc grenades can slow for an extended period of time, allowing for easier getaways, frag grenades having a faster rodeo, fire stars having an extended burn and killing any allied rodeos, while also allowing bleed damage over to a doom state, satchels simply dealing satchel damage but without eating up a grenade charge, gravity stars disabling abilities temporarily, and so on. Players should not only be rewarded for their high-risk maneuver, but also should be able to choose what they do with that reward for pulling it off successfully. A couple of neat abilities that would be amazing for Titanfall 3 would be a new Embark kit. Currently we have Phase Embark, which shaves a second off getting into your Titan. My proposal would be a Phase Re-Embark, and what that does is allow you to embark from your Titan from anywhere on the map by holding your Titanfall button, but costing more time than a regular embark, so it's counterplay. such as if you chased a pilot into a building and got killed, the enemy pilot is able to deal considerable damage against your Titan before you can recall. It should scale the animation time based off of distance, with recall from the opposite side of the map taking the longest. Another cool idea would be a directed shield or a sword deflect, which fans have been asking for a very long time, similar to the Ronin Titan. The ability could, for a second, allow the negation of small arms fire where you're looking. However, it would have a slight ending lag on the animation, allowing for counterplay, such as if the opponent can maintain line of sight with good movement. The player using the ability can also not fire back during this time. This does have some overlap with a phase kit, and also requires the pilot to look at where they're getting shot at from, and it doesn't work against most anti-Titan weapons, so I don't think it would be too powerful in comparison. And thus the player could be rewarded with a faster cooldown in comparison to phase, or be allowed to end the parry on command rather than waiting for the duration to end, such as with phase. Something I wish they kept from Titanfall 1 was the environmental interactions. Flyers coming down from the sky and assaulting troops and pilots, hackable anti-Titan turrets, and so on. Adding that to Titanfall 2 would be very interesting, and playing around these stage hazards or having another objective to control outside of the main one, and give one team an edge would be rather interesting to see. Things such as hacked specters being able to capture objectives, or being produced by on-site factories which can be hacked, giving the other team a leg up if they keep these secondary objectives under control. Hey, it's me at the end of the video again. I just wanted to talk about Titanfall, given the anniversary is coming up soon. I know that this is very different from what I normally do, but this is a video I've been thinking about making for a very long time, but never had the channel to speak about it, so here we are. I'm going to go back to making a normal video after this, but I'm thinking about making a video later on about how Bungie could add Icebreaker back into Destiny 2 without breaking the entire game like it did in D1. But only after the funny video gets released. I have a lot of ideas on my chest, and I don't know which one to follow, but it's likely going to be No Man's Sky, and then on to other stuff. So, yeah, thanks for listening, and ta for now. Oh, and before I forget, I don't really know what they're doing over at Respawn for the teaser things and sudden updates, but I'm cautiously optimistic for any Titanfall news. But yeah, ta for now, and thanks for stopping by. Do you see where I am? I gotta show you something.
I swear it said your icon was over here.
Well, never mind then.
What?
Your own shot.
Don't worry about it.